Hello, my name is Robbie Russell. I'm the VP of Engineering and a partner at Planet Argon. We help companies with existing Ruby on Rails applications make them better and more maintainable. In this talk, I would like to share 7 steps that we take before we start writing any code on an existing Ruby on Rails application. This is our checklist that we've compiled over the years and how we've learned to get better at this, because we don't believe starting with code is actually often the best answer for building a new relationship with a company. So let's talk through these 7 steps. Step 1, it's time to get to know their business. We do this through a series of questions in our initial calls with a potential client. Depending on the company, we meet with anyone between marketing managers, designers, software developers, directors of technology. Here are some of the questions that we tend to ask early on in those conversations. What does their business do? How do you make money? What industries are you working in? Who are their biggest competitors? How do they go about making decisions as a team? How do they prioritize which projects get precedence over another? How do they determine budgets? How would they describe their company culture? How might that align with ours? How does this application fit into their software ecosystem? Is it kind of like a piece of glue in between a couple different platforms, like a CRM or a CMS or ERP solution? Get them to share details about this information. Do they have customers, like their customers that pay them? Do they use this tool? Do they interact with it? Or is this an application that's used for behind the scenes operations, maybe just to help them facilitate part of their business for operations or managing projects or what have you? Do they have any APIs that are exposed that external and or internal teams need to be, they rely on them? So it's good to know if there's an API. Does this application store any sensitive data like health records, billing information, personal data, etc.? These things are really important to get to know early on. And I think as software developers, it's important for us to establish a kind of a shared understanding of what they're trying to accomplish with their business before we really start diving into code. And while it might feel like a simple thing to do is just give me a list of things to start working on and figure it out as you go, it really helps build some continuity between what you're about to start working on for them and their understanding of what you're capable of, and also showing interest in their business tends to go a long ways for you. Is this a mission critical project? I think this question isn't asked enough, and this is important because what sort of work commitments are you trying to make with the projects that you take on? So if this application were to go down on, say, Saturday night in the middle of the evening, how detrimental would it be to their business? Do you need to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to look into an issue for this? Or is it something that can wait till Monday? The next step is to find out what isn't working. Every client that approaches us with an existing Ruby on Rails application comes with a story of what's worked well and what hasn't worked well with their application. So let's talk about that with them. Are there areas of the application that seem to break a lot? Do they find themselves having to keep revisiting very similar types of bugs or problems and issues with the application? Let's find out if there's some brittle areas that we might need to spend a little bit of extra time. And more importantly, as you start to work on the application, to be mindful that those are the areas you're going to make sure there's some thorough testing of before you push them out, so you don't keep resurfacing that same sort of issue that they've been experiencing. You want to be a positive change for them. Are there areas and features of the application that got developed that nobody seems to use? Can they be removed at this point, or could they be disabled? Are there areas of the application that they really dislike having to work with? Is it painful? Does it cause a lot of extra steps and work for them? Is it error prone? Find this information out. Maybe you can work on approaching them later at a later point to address those items, or to improve the workflow, or to improve the UX of those components in the application. What have they had to come up with clever workarounds for? Are those things that also may warrant some future development and improvement upon? Step 3, get a walkthrough of the application. So what we typically do is schedule, if a client is local or a prospective client is local, we'll have them come into our office, or we'll go visit them, and then we'll ask them to give us a demo. But potentially they're remote in a different state or something, and you may schedule a video conference so that they can share their screen and walk you through their application. So I would encourage you to record the meeting, whether they're in person or remote, so that you could use this information in the future. You can't always assume that the people in the room at this point in time are going to be the same people on your team working on it from 3 to 6 months from now. So try to capture that information. So what we'll do is we'll ask the client to walk us through for every one of the roles that, so let's say there's an admin role, maybe there's a customer side user role in the application. There's different roles, and just to kind of give us a couple of demo, 2 to 3 tasks that those roles each kind of need to rely on in the application. And so that's a good way to get a sense of how people are using the application most of the time. And we know that you're not going to be able to get every little nook and cranny of the application, and you're not going to be able to retain all that information, but just to get some high level, like here's some core features and user stories that were at one point implemented for these primary roles in the application. Be sure to take notes, document the hell out of this information because you're going to need it. And again, if you can get a chance to record that video screen, that would be really helpful because there's no better way to go back and learn about an application if you're bringing on another developer into this project in the future is to like say, hey, go watch this video, and the client will literally show you how they're interacting and the language that they're using to describe how they're completing these tasks. And you can learn some of the, the domain specific language that would be helpful for understanding the business as a whole. Step 4, we have the clients walk us through their backlog. And this comes in a lot of different forms. We've seen it all. So whether that's just an email that just has a huge bullet point list of things they want to work on, you really don't even understand what those items are yet. Perhaps there's spreadsheets if they're a little bit more organized than like an email or a Word document. Maybe they've worked with developers and they've used Jira or Pivotal Tracker. Walk through kind of their high level priorities. What are they looking to accomplish in the next several months on the project? Just get a sense of now that you've gone through the demo phase, now you're getting an understanding of what's coming up on the horizon, what they might be prioritizing. You can start to work with them on, maybe not so much estimating it, but at least giving them a sense of some t-shirt sizing them, oh, this is a small effort. This one's going to take a lot of research to figure out A, what the hell they're asking for, but B, how we might approach that. So you can kind of work through that process a little bit. And so what we typically will do in our end, we'll move all this information into our Jira account and get them set up with a Kanban board so they can start dragging and dropping and ordering the project. And then we'll start documenting things as the next step. So step 5, document things. They have let's find out about where is the code hosted? Is this on GitHub, Bitbucket? Do you need someone to get you access? Is someone going to literally send you over a zip file? Are you going to need to work with a VPN in order to work on this application or to interface with their staging and production environments? And if so, who do you need to contact to get access to those? It's a good thing to get those details ironed out and documented so that in the future, as you have other people on your team work on this project, they know who to contact to get access to the code base or to the servers and what have you. Is there any documentation related to system architecture, software of the application itself, mockups, wireframes if they've put together in the past, user stories? Where is the application being hosted? Is this on an AWS account that they're going to grant you access? Is this up on someone's Heroku account? Does your client actually own that account or not? Those are things you need to figure out and document that information for future reference. Do they have proper staging environments? Do they have continuous integration servers system set up so that as tests are being worked on, it's running the tests in the background to make sure that the automated test suite is still passing? Are they using any third-party tools like CDNs, like Akamai? Are they working with any performance tools so you can get a sense of how well the application is performing? Are they using New Relic or Skylight or Scout? Get access to this information and document links to those resources for your future reference. And again, do they also have any bug tracking? Are they using Bugsnag, Airbrake, Honey Badger type tools? Can you get access to that so you can see what's happening behind the scenes? It's rare that I have a client come to us that has those, have actually spent that much time really keeping an eye on that. And so, quite often clients might come to you with a list of bugs and those might have been reported by a user, but there's a lot of bugs that pop up that nobody reports because they just got a 500 error on their screen and there wasn't any invitation to tell them what they just did and that might have triggered it. So keep an eye on those sorts of things. And do they have any documentation on how deployments and this whole setup kind of works? And if not, this is where you start documenting all this information and filling that in because it's going to be really important in the future. Step 6, the Ruby on Rails codebase audit. Our very first step before, like our first paid step in the process of taking over an existing Ruby on Rails application is more often than not a code audit. So this is when we will put a couple of developers, and give them a time box of hours, let's say 20 to 40 hours, give or take, and to look through the code base at, is the application adhering to Ruby on Rails conventions? What version of Ruby on Rails is this on? Are there any security patches that need to be applied in the near future? Is automated testing happening? How complex is the code base? There's a huge checklist of things that we've developed over the years that we run through, and then we can provide a lot of examples related to that specific application of what looks good, what we're kind of concerned about, and then we will also outline kind of a priority list of like, here's how we would like to prioritize dealing with this technical debt in the not so near future. And that way, when we're working with the client on expanding and grooming their backlog, we can start injecting in these items and be advocates for the code base itself, and not just for whatever their wish list of new features that they're going to have and bug fixes, but also, hey, you have a couple of vulnerabilities in these gems that we need to get patched in the near future. So maybe it doesn't need to happen this month, but the next quarter we would like to be able to tackle this, and this will save you time and money in the long run because we'll get some benefit from this, or we're addressing a security issue so that if they were to get hacked, there's at least a little bit of less of a chance that it was because of some vulnerability that we already knew about, which is like not a good situation to be in. And then on to step 7, start coding. And so I said that was going to be 7 steps before you start coding. And what I would really advocate at this point in the process is not to commit to doing anything too big as a first project. We're big advocates of working with the client to identify something that you could potentially work on for a few hours and then test out the process of pushing to staging servers, working through the cycle of getting feedback and clarifying the requirements with that client. So you can go through the cycle of like, they put in a request, you ask some follow-up questions, you work on a proposed solution, they're using your tools now, let's say you're using Jira, and you're using the tools and the commenting, and you might be having some calls to talk through the specific ticket. You're pushing it out to staging, and they're able to review it out there. You get approval for them that you're kind of meeting the objective of that specific ticket and update, and then you push that to production, and you get final approval, and you can close it out. And the reason why that's so important to do in such a small project is it really helps build confidence between both parties. And if there's any kinks in that process or a lot of delays on your end or on their end for getting responses to you, that might be a good thing to know about, could be potentially an issue long-term for you, especially on a bigger project, because you want to be able to start showing momentum quickly. And by also having to go through the process of getting things pushed to staging and production environments, you've been able to demonstrate that if something unexpected were to happen in the near future, you could, say, jump off of that big feature you're working on and go tackle some bug in their application and potentially get that deployed. What you don't want to do is start working with a new client and then, you're spending a week or two on this new big feature, and then that bug pops up and the site's down, and you're like, I have not even had a chance to look at that in the servers yet, and we've seen that be a big problem. So one of the most important things early on is to establish confidence in yourself and in them and your documentation that you can jump on urgent things as they pop up. That's so much more valuable right away when you're taking over an existing application versus just trying to deliver some new big features. Then start working on that stuff. Just test out a bite-sized piece of the process and project first, so that way you can go through this kind of end-to-end cycle. So just some closing thoughts. At this point, we believe that if we follow through this process, we'll have a decent understanding of how our new to us clients' businesses operates, how their existing Ruby on Rails web application fits into that business, at least from a general idea of what their business offers. How does this application fit into the overall ecosystem of their software? How mission critical is it? Where is it hosted? What technical debt may need to be addressed in the near future? From here, we can start diving into the backlog much deeper and checking off their feature requests and fixes. Again, this was 7 steps to taking over an existing Ruby on Rails application before you start writing any code. Again, my name is Robbie Russell, and I'm the VP of Engineering and partner at Planet Argon. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at planetargon.com or on Twitter at Robbie Russell. Thank you.